All right, so here we go on worksheet 3.3, number 4. And the first thing I notice is that there's something backwards here. If you rewrite this as log base 4 of negative x plus 2, it'll help you. Now describe how to transform this. Well, you just got to look at the things that have been done to it. That and that. This is really important. The order actually does matter. If you graph it wrong, because you do it in the wrong order, it will be wrong. I'll be able to tell because you'll screw up the answer. It's not like it's just, oh, I did it backwards, but I got the same thing. You won't get the same thing. All right, so what has to be done first is this one, because normally multiplies are done first, the multiply by negative 1. So we have to do the other one first. So I have to move this graph left 2, and then I can do the reflection. Now, how does this look in the first place? Generally, since this is a sketch, generally they look like this. A log is like a tree that's been blown over in the wind, and like this is the tree. And anyway, so if it generally looks like that, now I just need to move it to the left 2 and then reflect it. Now the reason that matters is if I just reflected it right now, it'd actually be a lot simpler. It would look like this. But that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to move it to the left 2 and then reflect it. So if I move it to the left 2, here we go. I'll have to hold that for a second. There. Now it looks to the left 2 compared to where it used to be. And now I can reflect it. And do you see that now when I reflect it, it actually has to go like that? All right. Because when you reflect something, it goes both ways. I mean, this stuff has to go to that side, and this stuff has to go over to that side. So, all right. So in the end, it would be that green one. And has the asymptote on it moved? Yeah. If you move it left or right, the asymptote that used to be at 0 has to move. The asymptote here would run like right there. Now, if this was a graphing question, you would have to have an XY chart and 2 points on the graph along with that asymptote. But since this just says to sketch it, sketch the graph, identify any asymptotes, all I have to have is the asymptote. I don't have to locate specific points. Otherwise, I'd be like saying on the XY chart, this is 1 point, and then I'd probably find the other one like there maybe. If it was a graphing question, you have to include that stuff. All right, enough of that. I'm gonna clear my ink off, and now go on to a different kind of problem. Let's look at this one for a second. What am I supposed to do on a problem like this? I'm supposed to try to solve for x, I believe. I'm gonna go look up at my directions. They say evaluate. Okay, so evaluate. Evaluate does not mean solve. Evaluate means to try to get it simpler. Write it as simple as you can. And this has got a 17 here and a 17 there. Do you remember that pattern? What's the answer? X is the answer. It's not x equals something, it's just x. Whatever's right there is the answer. Okay, a few other little patterns. Let's say you had log base 5 of 5 squared. What's the answer? The squared, the 2. Because if these two are the same, that's the answer. Now really what this is about is bases being the same. Think about this for a second. Do you get in a way that 5 squared is a little problem that has a base of 5? And do you get that this 5 is the base in the log? The bases are the same. So the answer is in the exponent. That's the same thing we'd say kind of if we had this. And if I rewrote it as 2 to the negative 1 equals 2 to the negative 1, hey, the bases are the same. The answers are in the exponent. You get the answer from setting that equal to that. All right, so if the bases are the same, well, it's the same thing that's in this problem right here. That's a base, isn't it? The way we've written it, isn't the 17 a base? And isn't the 17 also a base in there? And the bases are the same? All right, I'm hoping you notice that pattern. So if the bases are the same, then the answer in this case is the x, which isn't the exponent, but at least the bases are the same is kind of the theme. All right, let's move on and clear the ink again. Go further into the worksheet to the evaluate side, back side. I hope you know fraction exponents, because if you don't, you won't get a good grade in this next test. There are a lot of fraction exponent stuff in there. So how do we rewrite this 1 over 32 as a fraction exponent? Well, first of all, you got to know what the base should be. We do not want a base of 2. Because this one has a 4 right here, and you want the bases to be the same, right? So your real problem here is you're trying to say, how can I make this here be a 4 to a power? Because if it was 4 to a power, the answer would be the power. So I want this to be 4 to the something, and if you figure that out, you've got the answer. All right, so how do I write that as a 4 to the something? Well, first thought is, how do I make it 4 to the something, make it equal 32? 4 to the first? No. 4 to the second? That's 16. 4 to the third, is that going to, 4 to the third, is that, because it would be 16 times, wait a minute, 4 to the second was 4 times, yeah, 16. 4 to the third would be, okay, so that's going to be 64. That's too big. How am I going to do this? Interesting. So, if I have to say I want something, no, I want 4 to the something to equal 1 over root 32. I want to make sure that's a square root. Yeah, it is. Then, how can I solve this thing? What? Okay, we could make it into a 2. Yes? Okay, so let's make it into a 2. So this 32, I could rewrite this as 2 to the 5th and then make it 2 to a power. All I have to do then is take this 4 and rewrite that as a 2 also. Do you get how if this side's a 2, it's okay as long as that side's also a 2? So it's rewriting it and having a common base. So everybody on problem 9, if I were you, I would go like this. 2 squared for your 4. And then 2 to the something else I'm not going to tell you, you have to figure out. But once you have that, you have your answer, because if the bases are the same, that will equal whatever you figure out the exponent is. And yes, it's some kind of a fraction exponent. Then that equals that, you set it equal in a little equation and you solve it. How do you set it equal? Okay, I'm not telling you this answer. Let's say the answer was 4/5. Let's say it was. It's not, but let's say it was. Okay, then I would say 2x equals 4/5. And I just solve it. It'd be really easy. But I'm not telling you what that 4/5 is. You figure out the fraction. By now you should be good enough at that to figure out what fraction that is. It's a square root, and remember the roots go on the bottom. All right. Now let's look at this one, for example. Everybody look at number 12. Log base 8 of 8 to the 3rd root. If you know how to rewrite this part right here as 8 to a power, you're done. It's easy. What is that? 8 to what fraction power? 8 to the 1/3. Not negative 1/3. That would make it 1 over. No negative. Just 8 to the 1/3. 8 to the 1/3 is the cube root of 8. So I've rewritten this as log base 8. It already was that. Of 8 to the 1/3. And then that makes it easy. Okay. What have I told you about like problem number 14? There's a right away something you should do. When you hit problem 14, right away you should do what? Instead of ln, you should write log base e. You are correct. And then I put e to the 12. Do you get how easy the problem is all of a sudden as soon as you do what I told you to do? A lot of people sit there and stare at it and say, well, yeah, I know it's log base e. If you actually write it down, you see, oh, those two are the same. So ln means log base e. Always do that substitution, and then you'll see what's happening. All right. And this one, some people think that the base is 11. It's not. If there is no base, which there really isn't right there, then what is the base really? Base 10. And therefore, the answer should become clear and easy. All right. So you can see this was mostly review. And this worksheet is going to be pretty easy. So what I'd strongly recommend is that you start on the other worksheet when you're done with this one, because tonight's homework's going to be pretty easy. You'll be able to finish it in class easy. So if I were you, I'd be probably trying to do the first half of the packet that I gave you for tomorrow, because tomorrow's homework is a little longer than it should be. Okay, so get that. Today's will be easy. Start on tomorrow's ahead of time. And then your assignment that this, whatever color this is, khaki colored packet is due on Wednesday, day of your test. Okay? Now, you got time to ask me questions in class. If you sit there all hour and don't ask me any questions, that should mean that you're totally understanding everything. And that's cool if that happens. But if you are struggling, please come up and ask me. That's the only way that you can learn this stuff. All right. That's all I have for the video for today. See you today.